living off the land is something that we do when we go out on these like ceremonial hunts or when we go out on expeditions to like really uncharted places. We practice that. We and the elders in the community, like we lost like the guy who used to do the ayahuasca ceremonies in JJ's community, like we lost him during COVID. But it's like he knew things, he knew methods that the younger generation doesn't know. Like they have TikTok just like everybody else.
They
Like
have TikTok.
yeah. Dude, I told you, gold miners follow me on Instagram. Like it's like and that's a security risk for me.
Yeah.
Like but like JJ's father once apparently killed an electric eel, removed the nerve. And again, I don't know anatomically if this makes any sense, but this is how the lore goes. That he killed the electric eel, removed the nerve that generates the electricity, then cut his own arm open, put the nerve in it, and slapped a dead frog on top of it, and then bandaged that up. And he said that that would give him strength until the end of his days. And he lived to 87 years old, alive in the jungle and healthy, and he died one day at a barbecue he just leaned over on his grandson, smiled, and died.
Whoa.
He was like healthy until he died. He just turned off.
Huh.
Yeah. So like they do stuff. They have I was doing some stuff with tigers in India, and I picked up a disease called tularemia, and I had this horrible patch of pus on my elbow. And I went to every doctor. I came home from India, went to doctors in New York, and for 2 months I was like in bed, and I had no energy, and they put me on this antibiotics and that and this and that, and these, again, like New York City infectious disease doctors couldn't heal this thing. I went to the Amazon. JJ takes my arm, looks at it, and goes, "Oh, so bad. Look at this." He goes, "Come with me." We go into the jungle. He cuts a tree, takes the sap, says, "Drink some of this, not too much." He was like, "1 drop of this down your throat." I felt like it was going to close my throat. And then he took the rest of the sap and he rubs it onto the wound. And this is like a disgusting, pussy thing that had been plaguing me for months. It was better the next day.
Really?
It's better the next day. He knew which tree to go to. Now think about how many thousands of years are needed, or at least centuries are needed, in order for him to have that knowledge. How many people living out in the jungle had to try how many things to have that medicinal knowledge handed down through the generations, and then to be in the presence of a person that has that type of knowledge and to have access to it and to witness it working.
And what specifically does that sap work on? Does it work on all kinds of infections and diseases, or just the kind that you had?
No, so we actually tested it in a petri dish, and basically there's some of these saps that just murder infections. Like you can't get this bacteria to live with these saps. So like people use like we don't use Neosporin in the jungle. Like it doesn't work. What we do is we go to the Sangre de Drago tree. Like that works. As soon as I see like a little something like a mosquito bite that just doesn't look right and is like getting too much of my attention, just go and put that on it, and immediately gone. One time I slashed myself with a machete. I had this huge wound. I was thinking, oh God, this is going to get so infected. And then JJ was, nah, just drown it in that stuff. You'll be fine. And like you won't get infections.
Wow.
There's like miracle shit down there.
And is this widely known? Is this something that the scientific community is aware of?
I mean,
botanists and
yes and no. I think, God, what was it? Captopril they made from Bushmaster venom in the 1990s, and I think it was Pfizer. I don't know who it was. One of those companies made like a few $1 billion off of it. But what happens is people will discover a compound in the Amazon and then export it. It'll be like thousands of years of wisdom from ancient cultures handed down, and then someone will give that knowledge out to a corporation, and then they'll take it, profit off of it, and then that's it. But it's like at this point, one of the things we're trying to do is work with the indigenous communities to try and help them to preserve that knowledge. Because we're also seeing now that as the roads come in and you have the problems with the fires, and it's changing, at the edge where the jungle is being destroyed. The younger people have to decide, do they want to live the way their parents lived? Fishing, hunting howler monkeys, eating howler monkeys. Or do they want to go out into the world and do something else? And it's like, well, then you start with like, well, what else? It's like, it's very, very complex being at the edge of living in like a tribal subsistence community and then being confronted with like the modern world. And they have like a cell phone. And there's definitely a feeling, you can definitely see a feeling of like being like left out. Like they feel like, oh, we're just sitting here in a river. Whereas like I feel like people from our world would go like, God, they have it perfect. They have all the fish they could ever want.
Have you ever
the
taken
jungle
someone
is.
from there and taken them on a trip to New York City? I mean, I guess they don't have passports.
Well, some of the guys on my team, like that run Jungle Keepers, are like super native, but also kind of worldly. Like one of my guys, this guy Roy, he's a conservation chef, and he's like almost famous. He's been to Italy, he's been to Virginia. But he runs Jungle Keepers. JJ, I mean, speaks perfect English and like does interviews with me on like ABC News and like, so like these guys have. Roy came to New York City. Dude, the craziest one is this guy. There's a story about an anthropologist. I think it was Kenneth Good. I can't remember what his name was, but he went to the Yanomami, married one of them, brought them to the U.S. She couldn't handle it because she was like, I want to go back to the jungle. But they had kids together. And I heard this legend, like when I was a kid, and then that she had gone back to the jungle, but that this anthropologist had like Yanomami children that he raised on his own in the U.S.
Whoa.
And then last year I was at a dinner party and I met David Good, who is that guy. He's the kid. And so now he's going back to his people in the Yanomami villages. Yeah. He went to go back. He had to go find his mother. And the first time he saw her, she was naked.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I was sitting at like a dinner party and he was like, yeah, this was
So his mother had abandoned him to go back to the jungle. He's raised by his father.
the anthropologist.
And then how old was he when he went back to see his mother?
I think he was in his 20s.
Wow.
And he had to go on an expedition
When
up
was
a river
the last
into the
time he
jungle.
had seen her? How old was he?
I think when he was a little kid. I don't think she lasted long. I don't think she liked our way of life. She wanted to go back. Yeah. And so now he's doing his PhD. He's awesome. Like he could sit here with us and like he's doing his PhD on the Yanomami microbiome.
That's his mother?
I think that's his mother. And he's studying their gut fauna. Because their rates of cancer, their rates of disease, their rates of depression, of course, are like nothing compared to ours. And so he's launching this massive study right now to find out why are they so healthy and why are we so fucked up.
I
But-
think it'd be easier to find out why we're so fucked up.
But yeah, he's got a crazy, crazy story.
The way they have an understanding of their environment and the plants and what to eat and what not to eat is just, I would imagine talking, if you could speak their language and like be immersed with them for a long time and get an understanding of what they know, it must be amazing.
Well, the great thing is that he can. That's what makes him so interesting.